This week, the agenda asked if pictures today are worth 1,000 words, weighed the creative and economic costs of music downloading, and examined the need for a return to our Westminster roots. The agenda's Week in Review begins with a decade of TSO maestro Peter Oundjian. Watch. For 10 years, he has been at the helm of the Toronto Symphony Orchestra. And in that decade, the TSO has seen not only its audience levels climb, but also the symphony's prominence in global cultural circles. Joining us now for more, here's Peter Oundjian, the music director and conductor with the Toronto Symphony Orchestra. And I can't believe we haven't had you in this studio in the whole 10 years that you've been the maestro until now. That's appalling.
Amazing. Oh,
it's
I'm
amazing.
Delighted to be here.
I'm glad we finally rectified this. Let's start with this. Is the orchestra where you hoped it would be after 10 years of you being at the helm?
Interesting question. I think the only way to answer that is to say I don't think we really have a sense of exactly what it is we're aiming towards. When we just simply do the most exciting things we can do on stage. We try to hire the best players we can hire. We try to engage the audience in the best way we can, and then we see what's happening from one season to the next. I will say I'm delighted with where the orchestra is, but I never really had that as a specific goal.
Well, they always talk about measurable outcomes nowadays, and I don't know how you do it for music because I don't know if there's any objective criteria that you can hit, but X number of references around the world in newspaper articles, X number of dollars in the bank, a foundation of such and such a size. By those kinds of measurables, are you where you want to be?
I think from an economic point of view, not quite. There's still some challenges which face many symphony orchestras today, and you read about that. I mean, this orchestra in Minnesota, in Minneapolis, the Minnesota Orchestra, great orchestra, has been...
How long have they been on strike for?
Well, they're locked out,
I think.
It's a year and a half almost now. It's just, it's certainly over a year. Mm-hmm. And it's a tragedy because they really are a world-class, great artistic organization. And there have been many other stories of that kind. Fortunately, we have a wonderful board. We have people who really care about us. We have large audiences. In fact, the LA Times reported a couple of years ago that we have the youngest average age audience of any orchestra in North America.
What's the number?
Which is 124. No, the number, it's 49.
Well, that's actually pretty good.
First of all, you think, it should be 28 or something. But realistically speaking, 49 is actually a pretty fine average age for a symphony orchestra, because obviously a lot of people, once the kids have left home and they're out of college, now they have the time to go to the symphony.
Right.
But we have a tremendous number of young people thanks to our sound check program and various other ways that we encourage young people to come to our concerts, because we try to make it very accessible.
I remember several years ago, things were very dicey with the orchestra, and you had to call in Bob Ray at the 11th hour to be a mediator and figure out a way out of that. Is the orchestra today, that was a scare. A lot of people predicted you're going down.
Yeah.
Are you far from going down now?
I think we're far from going down, even though if you look purely at the numbers, to be perfectly honest, they're not fantastic. We have much too large a debt, but we have a very large endowment relative to that. Almost triple the size of our debt. So that, in a way, puts us in a stable position. But we need to work down this debt, and that's not the easiest thing to do. So the support, though, is there in the community. It's more a question of how we cultivate it. I think we've cultivated audiences very well, and we've cultivated a very large spread of donors. But it's much easier for hospitals to get the very large donations.
Sure.
People are always concerned with their health and with the health of their family, and hospitals receive enormous donations, and they appeal to the altruism of everyone. A symphony orchestra, people feel like, it's valuable to the city, but why is it that somebody should have to be giving $1 million here and $1 million there and $3 million there to a symphony orchestra? And the truth is that that's the model that works, in fact. And in the US, there are several orchestras that have endowments way over $200 million, and our endowment is not even 30 million yet. So we have a long way to go from that point of view. And we have government and tax structures that encourage this building of the endowment. And a lot of people are really working very hard on it. And I anticipate some exciting years ahead and a lot of progress in that regard.
But you really need more stinking rich people who love symphony music, don't you?
Absolutely, who understand the value of it and who really feel this is a great place to put the resources that I'm fortunately able to afford, because I think having a stable orchestra and a really lively cultural institution such as the Toronto Symphony Orchestra really makes Toronto a greater city.
Juno Award-winning musician Melanie Doan has been taking her talents from the stage to the classroom, and her instrument of choice is the ukulele. And here now to tell us why this little instrument is so very good at reaching these students is the fabulous Melanie Doan. Welcome back.
Hi.
Now, don't take this the wrong way, but when I was a kid, Tiny Tim was very big. Tiptoe through the tulips. Yes, exactly.
Yes.
But the ukulele was considered kind of a wacky joke of an instrument because of that.
Yes.
So when I first heard, I must confess that you were trying to teach kids how to play the ukulele, I thought, that's kind of funny.
Sure.
But it's not. I mean, what makes the ukulele not that crazy, wacky instrument that Tiny Tim was playing, but actually a great entree into so much more?
Well, back it was even before Tiny Tim, back in the 20s, there'd be just, "You are my sunshine," or people would play 5'2", eyes of blue, and people with funny raccoon hats, and they'd go in a canoe with their girlfriends, and they'd all have ukuleles in the 20s, and that was the beginning of the, when it was hitting pop culture for the first time, and people would just kind of hear this kind of thing, that was ukulele sound, which was great. What my dad figured out, his mother played a ukulele and gave him one at a young age. And when he became a teacher, he was using it, and kids love to play and sing, and that's wonderful. But what he understood very early on was that you could also give all of the fundamentals of a real music education by using this very affordable, attractive, inexpensive instrument. So he started out realizing, okay, well, melody, great, we can give melody. What about harmony? So melody and harmony together. You can hear them both. Because I know my scales and I know how to harmonize them. And then he thought, well, wait a minute, that's melody and harmony. What about, with my other hand, I've got rhythm. These are already 3 elements. I don't know, I paid $20 for this thing. This isn't bad so far, So he would add all 3 together and you can hear. Hear them all?
How old were you when you learned how to play that?
That particular piece?
Well, just that kind of thing. I mean, you've known how to do that since you were a kid, right?
I started pretty young. I did. But, we didn't even talk about singing and playing at the same time. An instrument that you can sing and play and self-accompany your voice is hugely beneficial to a child or anyone who's learning music, because look what you can do. You are my sunshine. Look how complicated this is. Sunshine, you make me happy. I'm singing a melody. I'm harmonizing my melody, and I'm also giving rhythm. I don't have anyone here with me. This is incredible. So what he talks about is the gift that you can give your student. What do they have when they go away from you? Not when they're with you and you're guiding and you're telling them, play that B note, B, B. No, what can they go away with and create on their own and participate with their family and spread into their community? So those are kind of the ideas that really turned me on. And when I got started in the school, people asked me to come in and do sometimes songwriting days or something like that. And I've done those, and it's really fun and working on songs. But without me there hand-holding, it's not really easy to write a song as a group. And so what I eventually said to schools was, I'd really like to come in for 30 weeks. Give me 30 weeks with the kids, and then they'll be writing songs. They will have all the tools. They will have their melody, harmony, and rhythm, and then they have something. That's what I'd like to give them. How about we do that? So that's kind of how it started.
And I guess size matters here, right? For kids to learn how to play, say, on a big guitar, difficult. Small ukulele, easier.
Less difficult.
Yeah.
It is more accessible. And there's a neat concept about the expectations. There are fewer expectations. What my dad's program does is apply all the same principles as a string program that you would learn at a violin program, Suzuki for instance. follow the same principles, but people don't have a heavy expectation about the ukulele. Ukulele's fun, and we're singing, and this is so much fun. They don't have some idea of their great-grandfather who came over from Russia and he was so great at the violin. This pressure, or we've got to do a conservatory exam. It's just, oh, how good are you? Wow, that sounds good. Amazing. And so that's another aspect of it that makes it so attractive.
I want to get inside your head a little bit more on this transition, because you basically spent your entire career using one set of tools, and then not quite overnight, but almost overnight, if you think of the grand scheme of things, we have no more dark rooms, there are no more chemicals, there are no more red safety lights, you don't have to load film into a camera anymore, you don't have to print the film anymore. All of that, you don't have to take it to the drugstore and leave it there for a week and then come back. All of that is gone, essentially. I mean, I guess there's a little bit of it left, but essentially, it is no more. What is it like for you to live through that transition, presumably realizing you're not entirely thrilled with it?
Well, I mean, I'm very glad that I did this project, because it was really a way for me to deal with that transition of having to move from one technology that I'd spent a large part of my life learning and understanding to another that is really quite new and quite radically different. I think film and photographs will continue to exist and be used, but it'll be limited to artists and students and hobbyists. We no longer use those materials as an everyday application. The last mass market that's not quite finished its transition yet is Hollywood. Hollywood is still using film, but it expects to be finished in the next year or two. So when that last mass market is gone, I think a lot of the products that haven't disappeared yet will, because you really need a kind of economy of scale to make this technology work, to make it high quality and affordable at the same time. So when that's gone, I think it will be an interesting time.
The pictures in the book really do, as we're showing right now, they really do chronicle what looks like the end of something.
Yes.
I mean, these plants all look really quite finished, don't they? And you went all over the world. You went to the European continent, you went to the United States, you've been to Canada. Your travels took you everywhere. How come?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was a huge industry. You have to realize that this was the material that we all created pictures with, personally, collectively. It was our memory in the 20th century.
There you are in France.
So yes, that's the birthplace of photography, Chalon-sur-Saône, where the medium was invented in 1826, and Kodak had a film plant that they blew up in 2007. But this was a huge industry. It used to employ hundreds of thousands of people. It had revenue in the billions. There were a lot of plants all over the world, and it wasn't possible for me to do a kind of comprehensive survey. So I really decided to concentrate on the places and companies that I'd had a relationship with as a photographer.
Are we actually living in what could be characterized as the golden age of photography now?
Well, there's certainly more photos than there ever were before, but it's hard to consider what qualifies a golden age. If we're saying that it's more accessible, and if we believe that accessibility is the answer to an increasing quality, then yes. If it's regarding the invention of photography, which is also quite interesting, though limited in accessibility, then that has already happened clearly. But right now, it is almost free. And infinite, and it's possible that it is now.
Rita, what's your view? Are we in the golden age?
Well, I definitely think that we're in a really optimistic time, and I agree absolutely that the accessibility of photography is going to have an effect on the quality of images made. It's just like making reading and writing accessible to people. I see with my first-year students instantly that they can make pretty good portraits, much better than people older than me could make who aren't used to using cameras a lot, so they have a real facility with that. I would say that they have a lot to learn outside of perhaps basic portraiture, and there's a big discussion to be had about the context of using imagery.
Okay. Paul, accessible, free, infinite. These sound like good ways of describing a golden age. Do you think we're in it?
It's really tough to say because photography has many uses. And I think accessibility has always been the progressive arc of this technology. Photography has gotten more accessible from its very first appearance in the 1830s. Now we take photographs on our phones. In other words, the photographs exist largely as communication. They are immediately sent as messages. They're shared. So I will agree with this theory. If you believe that the democratization of image making, the ability to use images as language, if that is what photography is all about, and that's your view of photography, then absolutely, we're in an extraordinary transformative period.
You're saying if, though?
If, because some people feel otherwise. There are people who make photographs as art, who function largely as painters do. And for them, democratization and the proliferation of image making can be a little frightening.
Doesn't necessarily equate quality.
Absolutely. That's absolutely right.
Gotcha.
So it really depends on your view.
Barry, what's your view?
It's a moment in time. They're all moments in time. So probably we have the death of the photograph and the birth of the image. Because, people will say, oh, but photography used to capture life. But not really, because anybody who's old enough to remember taking pictures with film, you went away for a long weekend and you took 48 photos. So you weren't really capturing the long weekend. You were capturing 48 moments, and everything was like, stand still, everybody, nobody move. And you had to compose this reality to get the right shot because...
and every picture cost money, so you didn't want to take too many.
And a third of them were terrible and out of focus and terrible. So probably what my generation and generations before, and purely at the beginning, thought a photograph was, hasn't existed in a long time anyway. My kids have probably taken more photos this year than I had of my entire childhood.
I'm looking around this table here. I'm operating under the assumption that you all have cell phones or portable cameras or whatever you want to call them on you right now, smartphones. Our friend out of town here, Tumblr, this is their thing. We've got Facebook and we've got Twitter, and the images, to use your word, are omnipresent. Selfies. This is the word of the year, according to the Oxford English Dictionary. We saw the President of the United States taking a selfie at Nelson Mandela's funeral. Peter, why is modern life drawn to images in general and photographs, if that word even exists anymore, in particular? What's the lure?
Well, I think it coincides perhaps with what the internet is all about. The internet takes us to new places. We can talk to people that we would have never speaking to before. We can learn about things firsthand, immediately, without being there. In a way, the photograph has always done that. The photograph has taken us to places, past or present, where we couldn't have gone to before. And those two things existing together is a pretty powerful notion that we can be anywhere in time and place for the first time in history. And I don't know if we're totally meant to do that or if we're accustomed to it yet, but it's happening and we're drawn to it heavily. The internet and photography are a good pair right now. Imagine those two things in the broader idea of being able to go any place at any time is really what we're attracted to.
I want to read something here that Dave Allen, the founding member of the British band Gang of Four, wrote, and then find out what you folks think about this. Dave wrote, musicians are now in the T-shirt, Kickstarter, Bandcamp, Spotify, Twitter, Facebook business. In the end, it's not the big tech companies or the conglomerates driving this, it's the users who tell us what they want. Okay, Zoltan, start us off on that. Are you in all of those different businesses that Dave just mentioned in that article?
Most of them. And I joke with people at shows, too, that we're not musicians. We're retail sales associates trying to sell people T-shirts and whatnot at our merch table after shows. So I definitely can understand what that quote's getting at.
Now, you're saying that a bit tongue-in-cheek, but a bit seriously as well, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, we are musicians, and that's first and foremost. But at the end of the day, if we're not selling products, if we're not connecting with people on Facebook and Twitter, if Lauren's not on there every day tweeting about shows and what's coming up and what we're doing, then people just have the potential of losing interest. So you've really got to keep the interest of everybody these days, with everything just being so instant and just kind of disappearing in a second if you're not keeping them entertained.
Eddie, how much of a difference would that represent, that list of things that an artist is now expected to do today? How big a difference would that represent from, say, the way things were 20 years ago?
Well, it's a huge difference, Steve. I mean, obviously, if you're spending a huge chunk of your time interacting with your fan base through all of the social networking sites available, you have a lot less time to work on the art and craft of your music. So I think it's problematic from that standpoint. But there's other concerns that I have, and I sort of don't agree with the quote. I think that those services are controlled by people who have a lot of money, put a lot of money into businesses and are monetizing music and are doing very well financially for monetizing music. And the problem from my perspective, and the reason that young bands have to spend so much time marketing their work is that most of the financial resources are going to the people who are developing those services. So you're in a situation where, for example, Spotify, one of the services you mentioned, was valued last week as a $4 billion company. Unfortunately, for those of us who make music, 1 million streams on Spotify will deliver to the songwriter about $35.
Okay, you've raised a bunch of interesting questions there, which I want to pick up on. Nikki, let me go to you first on that. The suggestion here that if you're spending, as an artist, so much more of your time liaising with fans on social networking sites, in the T-shirt business, in the Facebook business, etc., that there is the potential for your music to suffer as a result because you don't get the time to practice, do concerts, etc. What do you think of that argument?
I do think that's a valid argument. I mean, my job is online marketing, but that being said, we really take each artist into consideration and what they're willing to do. Some artists are really comfortable and want to be on social media and want to connect with their fans every day on a daily basis. Some want nothing to do with it, and when they don't, we don't force them into that. We look at other alternatives and other platforms and ways we can promote them ourselves without having to have them, pull them into that daily involvement and away from their art.
Zoltan, do you feel pressure to sort of be there, available to the fans all the time on social media?
I sometimes feel a pressure for Lauren since she's the songwriter and she needs to have that time for that to happen. When we're on tour, she's busy setting up, playing the shows, talking to people after, and then when we're in the van, she's got emails and stuff to do, trying to keep up on Twitter. So I feel that pressure for her because I can't do it all myself, so I need her help. But I'd rather her just focus on the music. And so it is a little difficult to try and find time for everything when you're an independent artist and you don't have anybody else working with you on that.
On one of your more recent blog posts, you also asked this question that we've asked: are the days of a full-time novelist numbered? And you posited the idea of potentially having writers do what bands do, the band model, as it were. What is the band model?
Right. The band model, which has been successful to some degree for musicians, is not selling the actual product, not selling songs, not selling albums, but selling access to the band. Either through, you come to a concert, you upsell them and say, hey, buy a backstage pass, maybe you party with us a little bit, or you buy a t-shirt or some kind of merchandise that isn't actually the music. And that works when you have a huge audience. Music has big audiences. If you have 5,000 people show up at a concert, you go, it was just okay. You have 5,000 readers. For many of my colleagues, that's their entire audience worldwide. You would never get them all together in one place. In Canada, we have a vigorously supported program of public readings, courtesy of the Canada Council for the Arts, the Ontario Arts Council. If you do a solo reading, you can make $300 for your evening. Not $30,000, not $300,000, $300. And you can do that maybe, if you're lucky, a half dozen times a year.
So you're not going to live off that?
You're not going to live off of that. And as for the merchandise, Alice Munro just won the Nobel Prize in Literature, but I've yet to see a single Alice Munro t-shirt on anybody. It just doesn't work. And realistically, what we want as writers is to be honest about what we're doing. We're selling books, so please buy our book. Don't buy anything else. Don't buy access to us. Don't buy branded merchandise. Buy the book.
Okay, let me get a little in your face here.
Yeah.
Is that old fuddy-duddy thinking?
It might well be. And I just had lunch before this with my editor over at Penguin Canada, right, which is a huge publishing company. And everybody in the industry, not just authors, but editors, publishers, sales force, we're all wrestling with this. But we have the advantage of having seen what's happened in the music industry. It happened there first. Digitizing of songs made a lot of sense. Easy to do, and you get rid of all that hiss and crackle of vinyl and so forth. I know they're purists. We saw what happened to them, and we saw that the aggregators make a lot of money. We talk about the long tail in retail, which is great if you are selling everything. You don't care if it's 5 units of this and 5 units of that. But if you're the guy way down the long tail who is only selling 5 units now, you're really not in a good shape.
Well, let's talk about another potential example, because earlier in the program, this thing I'd never heard of before, but it was called noise trade.
Yes.
Which bands use to get tips.
Right.
If you like what you hear, leave us a tip. And they make, a little money. It's not very much, but it's something. Again, using the comparison, would that work for authors?
Well, some of my colleagues have given this a try. They put a tip jar on their website. If you like my work, and there's kind of a wink and a nod, which they really mean is, if you pirated the ebook, slip me a few bucks and we'll keep it just between the two of us. Doesn't matter that the publisher, the cover artist, Tony Morrow in this case, doesn't matter if those people were cut out of the action. You give me a few bucks, we'll look the other way that you didn't get this through the channel. So a lot of people are being cut out via the tip jar. And we had a model that worked perfectly well. You buy the book, you pay for the book.
But that, technology has rendered that model, I don't want to say obsolete, but more challenging. Let's put it that way.
It's very much more challenging now. But what we're fighting now is not piracy per se. We're fighting an ethos, a belief on the part of a whole generation of people that we are somehow being compensated in reputation points, for instance, rather than being compensated directly. That if you downloaded my work, you're honoring me.
You've been specific. You have said here that a review of the leader can take place if just 15% of caucus members support a process of leadership review. 15% of, let's say it's your caucus right now, which is 162 members, that's 24 MPs.
Mm-hmm. That would be to trigger the vote.
To trigger the vote, right. That's not very many, right?
No, it's not. And that's the standard in use in other Westminster democracies. The power is used judiciously because you have to be accountable for using that power. The removal of the leader still would be something that would require 50% plus one of the caucus members.
But if you look across the floor at the Liberal caucus right now, basically what you're saying is if there's 5 cranks in there who don't like Justin Trudeau, they can trigger a vote.
That's right. And as I said before, I think the rule will be used very judiciously. I think that anytime you trigger something like this, you're going to create a lot of attention, a lot of controversy. And not only that, you have to be accountable back to the party members in your local district. And if they aren't supportive of what you do, you will be reviewed at the next nomination meeting and possibly removed as the party candidate.
But you could understand how a leader would say, boy, 15% floor is a pretty small floor. That's going to lead to endless, loop after loop, leadership reviews.
That's not true. If you look at how the rule has been used in other parliaments, like those in the UK or Australia, they only really it only is really utilized during leadership crises. And I think the big difference between how they operate and how we operate is this. When we have leadership crises, like we've seen in the Martin Chrétien years, like we saw during the final days of the Canadian Alliance and Progressive Conservative parties, we tend to have drawn-out, protracted leadership crises, where months, if not years, are taken up with inner fighting by party members and caucus members. With these sorts of rules on caucus leader review put down on paper, made clear to everybody and made clear to all, you end up with quick decisions, either to sustain the leader or to remove the leader and begin the party's leadership race amongst its membership.
I am going to set this discussion up with a quote from your book. Ready? Here we go. He would shock the system regularly to keep his opponents off balance, divided or both. He would hoard information for himself and dole it out to the people and to Parliament through an eyedropper. He would never let mere principle deny him any advantage his opponents had used or might use if the tables were turned to hold on to power. He would be nice when he could, reach out when reaching out would help, but when the chips were down, he would not hesitate to demonstrate there could be no bigger son of a bitch in Canadian politics than Stephen Joseph Harper. First question, do you think our Prime Minister would mind that description?
No, he would never say anything like that in public because it's a little salty, but I think I think he would recognize himself in that.
Did he speak to you for the book?
No, he didn't. I flirted with him for about a year through intermediaries. They would ask, what would you like to ask about? What are the themes that you're exploring in the book? They got as much information as they could. They had discussions about whether to talk to me at the senior staff meetings at Langevin Block. There apparently at some point was a decision to talk to me on the condition that I never reveal that I had spoken to him. So if I had spoken to him, you'd ask me that question, I'd have to figure out some fancy lie. But in the end, even though members of his staff congratulated me on getting an interview with the boss never actually sat down for the interview.
That's funny. But you know him, and you have had conversations with him before sitting down to write this book. So
I've been sort of running across him one way or the other for nearly 20 years.
Right. Most first ministers get elected because they say, here's what I need to achieve in my term in public life, X, Y, and Z. Mm-hmm. What's on that list for Stephen Harper?
He needs to leave less federal government behind when he's done than he's found when he arrived. And as far as I can tell, he's the first prime minister with that agenda item at the top. Even other conservatives, certainly Sir John A., Diefenbaker, Mulrooney, Joe Clark, were builders. They wanted to launch projects. Harper is an editor. That's the gentlest term. He wants to constrain the federal government so that it will interfere less in the lives of individuals and communities than it has in the past.
Those who like Stephen Harper can thank you that you helped make him. Those that don't like Stephen Harper can blame you that you gave him a good shot on your TV show that allowed him to get famous. What camp are you in?
Well, I'll tell you. I said to him after he became Prime Minister, and he came on for his first interview. He came on with me twice in the first year he was Prime Minister. Then he didn't come on anymore. So I think I know what camp he has me in. Okay. But the first time he came on, I said, sort of in a jocular way, I'm telling everybody I made you Prime Minister because I put you on my show. And he looked at me.
No reaction.
Well, he just looked and he went, well, I was on your show. So, but no smile, no joke, no. And I don't know if that was his joke, it was a deadpan or, no, but he phoned me up and asked to be on when he was running the National Citizens Coalition after he'd had his fight with Preston Manning and didn't run in the 97 election.
And you wanted to turn him down.
Well, he phoned me up, and for a moment I wasn't sure who it was because I hadn't really, I maybe had him on the show once or twice when he was an MP, and I didn't really know, and he's not like Brian with a big voice, so he just sounded like anybody else. And he said, "Hello, Don, it's Stephen." And I thought, well, who the heck is Stephen? So I did the trick that some people do. I said, "Gosh, it's awfully cold here in Ottawa today. How is it where you are?" His voice said, "Well, it's awfully cold in Calgary." I said, "Calgary, Stephen, got to be Harper." And he said, "I want to be on your show to stay politically viable, and I want to be on your Monday panel, and I'll be the best one you have." And I said, "Well, I'll give you a tryout, but I'll decide if you're going to be the best one." And there'll probably be a few producers weighing in on it too. So, but he was good, and he got on, and he was, he was more conservative than he is as Prime Minister. And he and Jerry Kaplan, who's still around, and I see on TV from time to time, and who was also a great panelist, they would go at it like you wouldn't believe, And then one day Harper phoned me back in 2002 and said, "I won't be on anymore." And I said, "Well, you're not ill, are you? I mean, you okay?" "I'm fine." "Well, why won't you be on?" "I won't tell you." I said, "Wait a minute. You kind of phoned up and lobbied me to get on. You owe me an explanation." So he said, "Well, I'm going to run against Stockwell there." So I said, "You're right. You're not going to be on anymore. If you're going to do that, that's it."
And he did, and he won, and the rest is history.
There you are.
And it started with you.
Well, I don't know.
And that is the Agenda's Week in Review. You can see all of those programs in their entirety on our website. That's theagenda.tvo.org. They're on our iTunes channel or on the YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/theagenda.
Support Ontario's public television. Donate at tvo.org.